If you've been following hockey for a little while, you probably recognize this play.
Stefan steals and he'll ice it. Oh, at least I thought he was gonna until he blew it. That's unbelievable. Here come the Oilers the other way, and Hemsky's loose. Hemsky, he scored! Can you believe what we just saw?
If you think you know everything about this play, I promise that you don't. The eventual trickle-down effect of this outrageously unlikely play occurring changed the landscape of the NHL for the next decade. But we'll get to that shortly. For the uninitiated, the score for the game was 5-4 for the Dallas Stars before this play happened with just 2 seconds left in the game to send it to overtime on January 4th, 2007. The player who missed the empty net is arguably one of the biggest busts in NHL history, Patrik Stefan, who, according to a savage Ray Ferraro,
Patrik Stefan, you should be embarrassed for what you just did. That does not belong in the National Hockey League.
I still think that was a bit harsh from Ray Ferraro. It wasn't like Stefan was trying to showboat or try anything fancy. Unlike when Craig Smith sent this puck into outer space trying to roof it. Stefan was just trying to gently, innocently slide the puck into the net, like many players have done in the past. But unfortunately for him, he got extremely unlucky with the puck bouncing on him at the worst possible time, causing him to miss the puck. Poor guy. This misplay is probably what he's best known for despite being picked first overall at one point, and that too before both the Sedin twins. If you look at this play in a vacuum, you could argue that the Oilers were incredibly lucky to be able to take this game to overtime and collect at least 1 point. But this 1 point potentially cost them a decade of darkness, while simultaneously kick-starting a modern-day dynasty. The 2007 NHL Draft was held on June 22, 2007, a mere 6 months after the Patrik Stefan incident. The order of the draft was primarily determined by a lottery involving teams that didn't make the playoffs, similar to how it's done today. The Oilers had finished the season with a disappointing 32-43-7 record, finishing 6th worst in the league with 71 points. The Blackhawks, who were going through their roughest patch in almost 50 years, would finish 5th worst in the league, with a record of 31-42-9, also with 71 points. This meant that the Hawks, despite being tied in the number of points with the Oilers, had the 5th best odds at landing the first overall pick because of the tiebreaker. And this was a first overall pick worth tanking for. Patrick Kane was the consensus first overall pick, even though there were some scouts who favored JVR or Kyle Turris. But his ridiculous draft year with the London Knights, where he put up a ridiculous 145 points in 58 games, had him securely in the first overall spot in most mock drafts. To put that into perspective, McDavid scored 120 points in 47 games in his draft year in the OHL, which is roughly the same rate at which Patrick Kane was scoring at with London. So safe to say, the 17-year-old baby-faced Patrick Kane was a coveted prize for the winner of the draft lottery, which, as we now know, would end up being the Chicago Blackhawks, who would jump from having the 5th pick to the first overall pick because of the results of the draft lottery. They would go on to pick Kane, who would carry the Hawks on his back for the next 10 years, winning 3 Stanley Cups, a Conn Smythe, an Art Ross, a Hart Memorial, and a Ted Lindsay Trophy. But all of this would have been different had the puck not bounced on Patrik Stefan. Had he scored the empty net goal, the Oilers would have lost that game 6-4 in regulation and would not have collected the extra point for pushing the game into overtime. This would have pushed them below Chicago in the standings and would have given them the 5th best odds at landing Kane, which, as we now know, was the magic number to win the draft lottery. I know there's an argument that, hey, this game was just 1 point out of 71 points that the Oilers accumulated that season. So what about the other 70 points? Why don't we do what-ifs about those? I think it's just the nature of how extremely unlikely it was. How it seemed like everything in the universe conspired to make sure the Oilers got that extra point. I mean, even once Stefan missed the net and slipped, there was only less than 10 seconds left in the game with the puck all the way on the other end of the ice. For them to be able to get it up ice that quickly and get an incredible scoring chance, it's just all so unlikely. And the butterfly effect that followed was just so profound and formative to the NHL we see today. If the Oilers had won the draft lottery, they likely picked Patrick Kane instead of Sam Gagner. And maybe they don't become a perpetual bottom dweller for the next decade. Maybe they don't get McDavid in 2015 if they draft Patrick Kane in 2007. There's just so many what-ifs to think about. And the same is true for the Hawks. What happens to their dynasty if they don't have Patrick Kane? Do they even win a single cup in the 2010s without one of their best playoff performers? The answer to these questions are obviously impossible to come up with certainty. But man, is it crazy to think about how the smallest, most insignificant things can change the landscape of the entire NHL with one bobbled puck. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like. And if you didn't, just refresh it to give it one more chance. Thanks for watching.